The town he lived in, once alive with laughter, music, and lights, was now a skeleton of what it used to be. Buildings leaned into each other like tired old men. Windows were broken, streets cracked, and the few remaining people rarely looked each other in the eye. Everyone carried the same heavy silence, as if speaking too much might remind them of everything they had lost. Earth itself was sick. The air carried the taste of ash from fires that had burned for seasons too long. The sky, once a canvas of blue, now wore a constant veil of gray. Even the stars, those ancient promises, had faded from sight behind the clouds of pollution. Eli had learned to live with it. He was a fixer, a scavenger. Most days, he carried his tools through the empty roads, repairing broken generators, patching old solar panels, or trading spare wires for food. He didn't complain because complaining had no use. But inside him, something small but stubborn refused to die, a spark that made him look up at the horizon each night, hoping. Hoping for what, he wasn't sure. Sometimes when he was alone, he thought of his childhood. There had been a girl back then, Lila, his neighbor, his only friend. She was the kind of girl who could make silence burst into laughter just by being near. They had spent countless evenings together, lying on rooftops and pointing at the stars. She would make up stories about the constellations, weaving wild tales about warriors and lovers across the sky. Eli would listen, smiling even when he didn't understand half of it. Then one day she was gone. No warning, no goodbyes. Her family's house was suddenly empty, and no one could explain it. People said maybe they had moved away. Others whispered darker things, that in those unstable years people vanished for reasons better left unspoken. Eli never found out the truth. He only knew the ache of her absence. Sometimes, even now, when he closed his eyes, he could still hear her voice echoing in his memory. One day Eli will fly up there. We'll see what's waiting beyond the stars. But the stars were hidden now, and so was she. One evening, after a long day fixing the last water pump in town, Eli sat alone in his workshop. The place smelled of oil and dust, its shelves crowded with scavenged tech. A dim lamp flickered weakly overhead. He rubbed the grease from his hands and leaned back in his chair. The silence pressed down heavier than usual. That was when he felt it, the loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being alone in a room, but the kind that eats at you when you realize you've been alone for years. He whispered into the silence, almost against his will. "Do you still remember me, Lila?" Of course, there was no answer. There never was. Just the hum of a broken radio in the corner. Yet somewhere deep inside he couldn't shake the feeling that she had never truly left. That maybe in some way he couldn't understand she was still out there. It was foolish. It was impossible. But he clung to the thought. Because in a world falling apart, even impossible hopes were better than nothing. That night, as Eli locked the workshop and stepped into the cold air, he noticed something unusual. The sky, normally buried beneath layers of cloud, was split by a streak of silver light, burning fast across the horizon. A meteor? Debris from orbit? He wasn't sure. But the spark inside him flared alive again, stronger than it had in years. He stood frozen, watching the light tear through the heavens. And for the first time since childhood, he whispered not in sorrow, but in awe. The stars, they're moving again. Eli didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning. The night his quiet, broken world would change forever. The night a familiar stranger would return. The silver light streaked across the sky, cutting through the clouds like a blade. Eli couldn't take his eyes off it. It wasn't like the falling debris he sometimes saw burn out in the atmosphere. This light moved differently, steady, controlled, purposeful. He felt a chill crawl up his neck. When it vanished behind the dark hills outside town, his body moved before his mind caught up. He grabbed his jacket, slung a flashlight onto his belt, and set off into the night. The world was dangerous after dark. Bands of scavengers, wild machines gone rogue, animals turned desperate. But something inside him refused to stay behind. The spark of hope, the same one that carried him through lonely years, was blazing again. The hills were silent except for the crunch of his boots against dead grass. The air grew colder, sharper, and then he saw it, smoke curling into the sky, glowing faintly with shifting blue light. His heart hammered. He ducked low and crept closer. What he found made him stop dead in his tracks. In the hollow of a dry riverbed lay something half buried in earth and stone. A ship, small, silver, its surface alive with flowing patterns of light, unlike anything Eli had ever seen, yet somehow fragile. Like it was hurt, but what froze him wasn't the ship. It was the figure standing in front of it, a woman. Or at least, something shaped like one. Her skin shimmered faintly, marked with glowing lines that pulsed softly, like veins of starlight beneath the surface. Her hair floated in the night breeze as though it carried a life of its own. And her eyes, silver, luminous, fixed directly on him. Eli's breath caught. The woman tilted her head, almost curiously. Then in a voice both strange and achingly familiar, she spoke his name. Eli. He staggered back, heart slamming in his chest. He had never seen her before. And yet, something in her voice struck him like a bell ringing in the deepest part of his memory. How do you know me? He demanded, though his voice cracked. The woman took a hesitant step forward, her light spilling across the dirt. Her lips trembled as though she were holding back something fragile. And then with a softness that broke him, she asked, "Do you recognize me, human?" His breath left him. He stared, lost between fear and impossible hope. Recognition burned at the edge of his mind like the answer to a riddle he once knew, and then it hit him. The eyes. The way she said his name. The quiet tremor in her voice. It was impossible. It was madness. But he knew, Lila. The name slipped out like a prayer. Her eyes shone brighter. She smiled, and for a moment, despite her alien beauty, she looked exactly like the girl he used to know, the neighbor who had vanished from his life, leaving him years of silence. "It's me," she whispered. I came back. Eli's legs felt weak. He wanted to run. He wanted to embrace her. His mind screamed that this couldn't be real. But his heart, it knew her. The same way it always had. You disappeared, he stammered. "I thought you were gone." "Everyone thought I was taken," she said, her voice both heavy and tender. "Not gone. Never gone." She stepped closer, slowly, as if afraid he might vanish if she rushed. He didn't move. He couldn't, her glow reflected in his eyes. Her beauty both human and not. Strange. Terrifying. Unmistakable. Lila, the girl who had shared his childhood laughter, who had promised they would touch the stars together, now standing before him as living proof of that promise. Eli's world spun. His throat tightened. Questions tore through his mind like lightning, but only one made it out. Why? Why now? Why come back? Her answer was simple, but carried a weight that made the air feel heavy around them. "Because your world is in danger, and I couldn't stay away, not from you." The wind howled through the empty hills. The ship behind her flickered weakly like a dying heartbeat. Eli felt the ground beneath him tilt. The stars above had moved, yes, but nothing could have prepared him for this. His childhood neighbor, his lost friend, was here again. Changed into something alien, beautiful. And she had returned not just with memories, but with a warning. And deep inside, Eli already knew. His life would never be the same. The silence between them stretched long, filled only by the faint hum of the strange craft. Eli's mind refused to catch up with what his heart already knew. This was Lila, changed beyond recognition, yet still her. Her silver eyes softened as she stepped closer. "I never wanted to leave," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "But the night I vanished, I was taken." Eli's breath caught. "Taken? By who?" Her gaze flicked up to the sky, dark and endless. "By them, a people not of this world. They chose me, or perhaps I was unlucky enough to be chosen. They saw something in me, a spark they could shape." Eli shook his head, struggling to process. "Aliens, that's a story for old books, for crazy radio broadcasts. Not this." But her eyes, shimmering and steady, held him in place. "You know me, Eli, you feel it. Whatever they changed in me, whatever I've become, my heart is still human. Still Lila." He wanted to argue, to reject the madness, but as she said his name, it was like hearing it through time. The same tone she used when they were kids hiding under the broken swing set, whispering secrets. His throat tightened. "What did they do to you?" Lila looked down at her hands, pale and glowing faintly as if lit from within. "They rebuilt me. My body couldn't survive the journeys they wanted me to take, so they gave me this form, stronger, faster, able to live where humans cannot. But it came with a price. I can never be entirely what I once was." Her voice cracked, and for the first time Eli saw the weight she carried. Not just the strangeness of her transformation, but the sorrow of losing her old self. "And now you're back," he whispered, though the question pressed harder in his chest. "Why, after all these years? Why come back to Earth? Why come back to me?" She lifted her gaze and the night air seemed to thicken with her words. "Because your world is in danger. The ones who took me, they are not the worst out there. Far beyond them lies another race, one that harvests entire planets, stripping them bare until nothing is left. They're moving through the stars and Earth is in their path." Eli's body went cold. "Harvest? You mean they will not see you as people," she said firmly, though sorrow flickered in her tone. "To them, humanity is just fuel, resources. You will burn and they will move on." The words hung heavy in the night. Eli staggered back, shaking his head. "No, that's impossible. Earth is broken, but it's still ours. We would know if, would you?" Her voice sharpened, not in anger but urgency. "Your skies are blind now, your signal's weak. You barely look beyond your own wounds. You wouldn't see them coming until it's too late." Her words cut deep because he knew she was right. Humanity had stopped looking upward long ago. "Then what do we do?" His voice cracked with desperation. "How do we fight something like that?" She stepped closer, her glow wrapping around him like moonlight. "That's why I returned. I cannot stop them alone. But I carry knowledge, and I remembered you, Eli. The boy who never gave up even when the world crumbled around him. I came back because I believed you would help me, because I couldn't face this without you." He felt his chest tighten painfully. To think, after all these years, she still thought of him. But fear gnawed at his edges. Aliens, invasion, extinction. It was too much. And yet, when he looked at her, he didn't see a monster. He saw Lila, his lost friend, standing before him with the same trembling hope she once carried as a child. "I don't know if I can believe any of this," he whispered. She reached out, her glowing hand hovering just above his. "Then believe me. The girl who used to laugh with you under the stars. The one who never forgot your name. Believe me, Eli, that's all I ask." His heart thudded in his chest, torn between fear and longing. And in that moment, Eli realized his world was no longer silent. It was beginning to awaken. Eli didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. After the impossible meeting in the hills, he led Lila back to his workshop under the cover of darkness. Every step he expected someone to see them. The shimmer of her skin, the faint glow of her eyes, but the streets were empty, swallowed by silence. Inside, he shut the door and bolted it. The workshop was cramped, crowded with tools and half-dead machines, but it was safer than the open night. For a while, neither spoke. Eli sat at his workbench, his hands restless, fiddling with scraps of copper wire just to keep them from trembling. Lila stood near the corner. Her glow softened until she almost looked human again, except for the silver in her gaze. At last, Eli broke the silence. "You shouldn't be here. If anyone sees you," her lips curved into a faint, almost playful smile. "Still worrying too much. Just like when we were kids." The sound of it hit him harder than he expected. Memories rose unbidden. Lila daring him to climb rooftops. Lila laughing when they snuck apples from the orchard. Lila whispering her made-up stories beneath the stars. He swallowed hard. "That was a long time ago." "Not to me," she said softly. "Time feels different out there." "But I never let go of those nights. Or of you." Eli's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her, to hold on to the warmth in her words, but fear clawed at him. She wasn't the same. The Lila he remembered was human. Flesh, bone, ordinary laughter. This Lila was something more, something alien. And yet when her eyes found his, he saw no deception. Only the same girl who used to call his name as though it meant everything. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked suddenly. "Being taken. Being changed into this?" Her glow dimmed as her shoulders lowered. "Every day. Not because of what I became, but because it took me from here. From the life I should have had. From the boy who made me believe the stars weren't so far away." The rawness in her voice struck deep. Eli felt his defenses slipping piece by piece. They spent the hours talking, voices hushed. She told him pieces of her life beyond Earth. Alien worlds carved from glass. Seas that sang when the wind touched them. Cities built on rings of fire. He told her about the years she'd missed. How the town decayed, how the stars vanished behind the haze, how he carried her memory like a secret flame. At times, it felt almost like before. Two kids trading stories in the dark, except now they were older, scarred, and the weight of survival pressed heavier on their shoulders. When dawn crept faintly through the broken windows, Eli found himself staring at her. Not at her alien grace, the luminous skin, the starlight veins, but at the way she tilted her head when listening, the way her laughter still rose suddenly unexpectedly, like it had all those years ago. She caught his gaze and smiled. "A quiet, fragile thing, Eli," she whispered. "Do you remember what I said back then? That one day we'd fly to the stars?" He gave a shaky laugh. "Yeah, I thought you were just making up another story." Her eyes glistened. "It wasn't just a story. I wanted you there with me. Always." The words hung between them, heavy with years of silence and longing. Eli's hand twitched on the workbench. Part of him wanted to reach out, to close the space, to believe that what he felt wasn't madness. But fear held him back. The fear that touching her would prove she was no longer the girl he remembered. As if sensing his hesitation, Lila whispered, "I may look different, Eli, but when I see you, I feel the same as I did then. Human. Whole. Home." Something in him broke open. For the first time in years, Eli allowed himself to hope, not just for survival, but for something tender, fragile, and terrifying love. And though neither said the word aloud, the air between them carried it all the same. For 2 days, Eli kept Lila hidden in the workshop. He blocked the windows with sheets of scrap metal, muffled the door with heavy cloth, and told himself no one would notice. But the town wasn't as blind as he wished it to be. Whispers spread quickly in a place where life had grown dull. Strange lights in the hills. An explosion, some said. Others claimed they heard a low humming in the night like machinery from another world. And then there was Eli, the loner, the quiet scavenger who suddenly avoided everyone's eyes, who rushed home at odd hours with a stiffness in his step. The neighbors began to watch him. On the third evening, as Eli returned from bartering spare wires for bread, he noticed 2 figures standing at the end of the street. They weren't townsfolk. Their armor was smooth, black, stamped with the insignia of the regional authority. Soldiers. Their eyes followed him too closely. Eli's stomach dropped. Inside the workshop, Lila noticed the tension on his face the moment he walked in. "What is it?" "They're looking," he whispered, glancing toward the shuttered window. "The authority must have picked up your crash. They're sending patrols." Her glow dimmed. "If they find me, they won't." His words came fast, sharper than he intended, as though speaking them firmly enough could make them true. But deep down fear gnawed at him. He had hidden her, yes, but for how long? That night the low thrum of drones echoed through the sky. Searchlights cut across rooftops, beams of white sliding over walls like watchful eyes. Eli and Lila crouched in the corner, their breath shallow, as one of the beams paused outside the workshop door. Eli's heart slammed against his ribs. If the drones detected her, if they even sensed the faint trace of her ship hidden in the hills, she would be taken. Not by strangers this time, but by humans, and he knew what they did to things they feared. The light shifted away and the drone buzzed onward. Only then did Eli dare to breathe again. Lila touched his hand, her fingers cool, faintly luminous. "You don't have to risk this for me." He turned sharply to her. "Don't say that. I lost you once. I'm not losing you again." Her silver eyes softened, but her voice carried sorrow. "Eli, if they find out you've helped me, they'll destroy you too." "I don't care." The words left his lips before he could stop them. And to his surprise, he meant every syllable. For a moment, the fear loosened its grip, replaced by something warmer. Something dangerous. But the town's eyes were closing in. The next morning, when Eli stepped outside to fetch water, old Marla from across the street called to him. Her voice was too loud, too casual. "Strange nights lately, eh, Eli? You see those lights in the sky?" He forced a shrug, probably falling scrap from orbit. Nothing new. Her eyes lingered on him, sharp and knowing. And here I thought you kept to yourself because you had nothing to hide." The words slid under his skin like knives. He walked quickly away, pretending not to hear, but he knew. Suspicion had already rooted itself. Back inside, he found Lila by the window, watching the pale daylight. Her face was unreadable. "They're closing in, aren't they?" she asked softly. Eli swallowed. "Yes." And it's only a matter of time before they start asking questions I can't answer. She turned to him, her voice trembling. Then maybe I should leave. I can't drag you into this, the thought stabbed through him. He wanted to say yes, let her run, let the danger pass. But the very idea of her vanishing again, after finding her once more, after hearing her laughter again, was unbearable. He shook his head. No. Whatever's coming, we face it together. Outside, the drone hum grew louder, circling like a predator. Inside, Eli felt the weight of a truth he could no longer deny. The fragile world he had built was unraveling. And this time, it wasn't only his heart at risk. It was their survival. The nights grew sharper, filled with the hum of patrol drones and the whispers of neighbors who no longer trusted silence. Eli felt the world shrinking around him, every street corner an eye, every shadow a question. Inside the workshop, Lila moved carefully, never straying from the shuttered windows. She spoke in low tones, her silver glow dimmed so she wouldn't be seen. Yet despite her care, the weight of danger pressed heavier each day. Eli knew it couldn't last. On the 5th night, as he adjusted the broken locks on the door, a pounding knock rattled the frame. His blood ran cold. Regional authority, a voice barked. Open up, Lila froze. Her silver eyes locked on his, wide with fear. Eli whispered, hide, don't make a sound. She slipped silently behind the shelves, her glow fading until she melted into shadow. Eli forced his breath steady and opened the door. 2 soldiers stood there, armor black and faceless under their helmets. Behind them, a drone hovered, its red lens scanning. We've had reports of unusual activity, one said flatly. You've been seen in restricted zones at night. Care to explain? Eli's throat tightened. He forced a shrug. Scavenging. Same as always. People see shadows, they make stories. The soldier's visor tilted. We'll search inside. Panic slammed through Eli, but he stepped into the doorway, blocking it with his body. There's nothing here but scrap and rust. You'd be wasting your time. The soldier's hand moved toward his weapon, the drone whirred, scanning deeper into the room. For a terrifying moment, Eli thought it would detect her. Then a low crackle of static filled the air, and the drone sputtered, its red lens flickering. The soldiers cursed, smacking its side, and after a minute of frustration, they pulled back. Fine, the leader muttered. But if you're hiding something, Carter, we'll find out. They left. The drone buzzed weakly after them, still flickering. Eli slammed the door shut, his knees buckling. Lila emerged from the shadows, her hands trembling, faint blue sparks fading from her fingertips. You did that, he whispered, her eyes filled with guilt. I interfered with their machine. I couldn't let them see me. Eli's breath came fast, half in awe, half in fear. You used whatever it is they gave you. Her glow dimmed further. I know it frightens you. He shook his head sharply. It doesn't frighten me. It terrifies me. But not because of you. Because they'll see you as a weapon. Lila's gaze dropped to the floor. That's all anyone has seen me as since I was taken. Not a girl. Not a person, just something to use. The ache in her voice cut through him. Before he could stop himself, Eli reached out, taking her trembling hand in his. It was cool against his skin, faintly buzzing with energy, but real. You're still Lila, he said softly. I don't care what they changed. You're still mine. Her silver eyes lifted, shimmering with unshed tears. Eli. In that fragile moment, the fear between them melted into something deeper. But outside, the patrols grew bolder. Reports of the crash site spread. Soldiers widened their searches, and Eli knew it was only a matter of time before they returned. Harder, smarter, more ruthless. That night, as they sat in the dim glow of the workbench lamp, Lila spoke quietly. You could still turn me in. Tell them where I am. They'd let you go. You'd be safe. Eli turned to her, stunned. Safe? Do you really think I'd give you up again? Her voice trembled. I don't want to see you destroyed because of me. He leaned closer, eyes steady. I lost you once, Lila. It hollowed me out for years. I won't survive losing you again. If danger comes, we face it together. The words hung between them, heavier than any vow. For the first time since she had returned, Lila let her guard fall completely. She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her. Her glow brightened faintly, not with alien energy, but with something achingly human. Trust. Neither spoke of what tomorrow might bring. The world outside was tightening its grip, but for this one night they allowed themselves to believe in each other. And in that fragile belief, a new strength was born. The warning came not from the soldiers, but from the sky itself. 3 nights after Eli's stand at the doorway, the stars tore open. The air vibrated with a low hum, a sound that grew until it rattled the bolts of the workshop. Eli staggered outside, his breath caught in his throat. Above him, the clouds split apart in violent streaks of fire. Shapes, massive, black, and unnatural, descended from the heavens. Ships, hundreds of them. Their shadows swallowed the horizon, their lights like wounds cutting through the night. Around town, doors slammed open. People poured into the streets, faces pale, voices rising in confusion and terror. The authority soldiers scrambled, their drones buzzing frantically as if swarming gnats against giants. Eli felt Lila step beside him. Her silver eyes glowed brighter than ever, reflecting the fire streaking across the sky. "They're here," she whispered. His chest tightened. "The harvesters." She nodded once, her jaw set. "This is what I feared. They've come to strip your world clean." The ships broke formation, their engines roaring like thunder. Great beams of light swept downward, cutting across forests, towns, rivers. Wherever the beams touched, the land withered, the ground itself collapsing as if life were being devoured. Screams tore through the night. The earth shook. Eli turned to her, panic rising. "What do we do?" "We can't fight that." Her gaze burned steady. "There is a way. I can call others, rebels who turned against the ones who made me. They've been waiting for a signal, a sign of where to strike. But the cost, what cost?" His voice cracked. She looked away as if the truth itself hurt. "The beacon is inside me. It was woven into what I became. To use it, I must release my life force. It will drain me until there's nothing left." The ground shook again as a nearby building crumbled. Soldiers shouted orders, their weapons useless against the vast shapes above. Panic spread like wildfire. Eli seized her shoulders. "No, don't you dare. You've just come back to me. I won't lose you all over again." Her silver eyes softened, filled with both sorrow and fierce resolve. "Eli, if I can save your world, our world, then I have lived for something true. For you." He shook his head violently, tears burning at the edges of his eyes. "There has to be another way." "Sometimes," she whispered, her voice breaking, "the only way to keep a promise is to give everything." His heart ached, but in that moment he saw her not as alien, not as weapon, but as the girl who once pointed at the stars and dreamed. And she was still dreaming, not for herself, but for him, for humanity, for love. A deafening roar split the air. One of the alien ships hovered directly above the town now, its underside bristling with strange machinery, its beam widening as it prepared to consume everything below. Time was gone. Lila closed her eyes, her body glowing brighter, her veins alight with pure starlight. Eli gripped her hand, his voice breaking. "If you go, I go too." Her glow flared, wrapping him in light, and for a moment he felt weightless, as though he was standing at the edge of the universe itself. Then a pulse shot upward, a great burst of energy that split the heavens. It carved through the alien ship's shadow, sending ripples across the sky. For the first time, the invaders faltered. From beyond the stars, shapes answered, sleeker ships bright with defiance. Lila's kin, the rebels she had spoken of, arriving through the rift she had opened. They charged the harvesters with a fury that shook the night. The battle for Earth began. Eli clung to Lila, her glow flickering, her breath shallow. She had called them. She had given everything. And though hope now burned above in the fire and chaos, Eli's heart shattered with fear of what the cost would be. The sky was on fire. Alien ships clashed above, beams of light tearing through the heavens, shaking the earth with each strike. The invaders unleashed their power on the rebel fleet, their beams scorching land and sky alike. But the rebels fought back, fierce and relentless, their smaller ships darting like sparks against giants. Eli held Lila in the middle of it all, the workshop trembling around them. Her glow had dimmed, her body trembling from the strain of unleashing the beacon. She leaned heavily against him, her breath shallow. "You did it," he whispered, clutching her tighter. "You brought them." Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. "I kept my promise." Another explosion shook the ground, sending shards of stone skittering across the floor. Outside, soldiers and townsfolk alike scattered for cover. all swallowed by the chaos of a war beyond their comprehension. Eli pressed his forehead against hers. "Stay with me, Lila, please. Don't you dare leave me again." Her silver eyes fluttered open, dim but still holding that same warmth from years ago. "I don't want to go, not now. Not when I've found you again." Above them, the battle turned. The rebel fleet pressed harder, pushing the harvesters back with strikes that pierced their dark armor. One by one, the monstrous ships faltered, breaking formation. For the first time, the invaders seemed uncertain. A great cheer rose from the town below as a massive harvester vessel split apart in flames, collapsing into the sea. Humanity, though helpless, watched hope spark for the first time in decades. But Eli's hope was smaller, fiercer. It was in the fragile girl in his arms. As dawn crept slowly over the horizon, the alien fleet began to retreat, vanishing into the sky like shadows dissolving in light. The rebels followed, chasing them far from Earth's reach. The war was not over, but the day was saved. The world survived. And yet, as silence fell, Eli's fear grew heavier. Lila's glow flickered faintly, like a candle fighting the wind. Her hand tightened weakly in his, her voice little more than a whisper. "Do you see, Eli? Earth is safe. You'll live. You'll rebuild." Tears blurred his vision. He shook his head fiercely. "Not without you. Don't say goodbye. Don't you dare," she smiled, soft and aching. "You always were stubborn." He pressed his forehead against hers, his words breaking. "I don't care if you're human or alien or something in between. You're Lila, you're mine. I'll fight anyone, anything to keep you here." For a moment she was silent. Then slowly, her light steadied, weak but steady, as though his words anchored her to the world she longed to stay in. Her breathing evened. Her silver eyes glistened. "Then maybe I'm not gone yet." Relief crashed over him, leaving him shaking with it. He pulled her close, holding her as though the strength of his arms could protect her from the entire universe. Outside, the town staggered to its feet. People stared at the sky, no longer blind but awake. The veil of despair broken. Humanity had seen the stars again, and with them a reason to rise. Days later, when the fires cooled and the soldiers left to report what they could not explain, Eli and Lila stood together on the ruined roof of his workshop. The dawn spread wide across the horizon, soft and golden. Lila's glow was faint now, her alien beauty tempered by weariness, but in the morning light she looked achingly human again. She turned to him, her voice quiet, uncertain. "Do you still recognize me, Eli? After all that's changed?" He didn't hesitate. He took her hand, grounding her, his eyes steady and unflinching. "More than ever," he said. "You're the girl who never left my heart." Her lips trembled into a smile, tears shining like silver in her eyes. She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder, and together they watched the sun climb higher, lighting a world reborn. For the first time in years, Eli didn't feel alone, and for the first time in forever, Lila wasn't lost. The stars still held dangers, battles yet to come. But whatever waited out there, they would face it together, not as alien and human, but as two souls who had found each other again.